Hey, what's up guys? It's Will back once again. I've made myself another video here and it's been quite good. Obviously I'm known for doing predictions and so on, but in this one here I'm actually going to be doing 10 fighters who I think the UFC will sign in the next 12 months. So yeah, this is going to be my first video today. Later on tonight, I'm going to do early insight into UFC 249. Still a bit sceptical whether that's going to happen or not, but I'm going to make a video for it anyway, just in case the world changes in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but we will see. So in this video here, I'm literally going to be giving you 10 fighters I think between now and next year that will be in the UFC. And then I'm going to give you an honourable mentions list of fighters to really keep an eye on out there on the regional circuits throughout the world. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, hit the bell and be notified when my videos are coming on. But this is a topic that I've always loved, looking into prospects. I really have. I think fighters coming through is something that I've always really liked to look at. And this really kept me entertained over the last 24 hours or so on. So I'm going to get into it straight away. And the first one I have on my list, and this is in no real particular order here, but it's just fighters I think that we will see and who I want to see in the next year. So the first one up, Ilia Topuria, 8-0, fighting out of Spain, born in Germany. But this is the guy that came to my radar through Cage Warriors a couple of years ago when he fought Brian Bouland. And yeah, this was like 2018 in the summer there, so not even 2 years ago. Since then, I think he's went over to Brave. I'm not sure what the contract situation is, whether he's been signed to like a multi-fight deal, because the Brave guys usually do that. But this guy is devastated. A lot of finishes on his record. Beat some guys with some good record, like Brian Bouland's a veteran of the European circuit, and he beat him with a beautiful anaconda choke. And I remember he was an underdog in that one because I remember the odds. Didn't bet it right enough, but this is the guy that I really like. I saw him, he was on against Mika Hamalayan, where he got a mounted guillotine choke. Very nasty choke. Then, like I say, he's went on to beat Luis Gomez, who was an 0-0 fighter, 0-0 fighter, which is a little bit weird. And then Stephen Gonsalves, who was 6-2. So that's a guy you keep an eye on. It might be one that maybe shows up in the towards the end of the year, depending on what his contract situation is with Brave. But he's a guy that I like to watch and seeing his fights there. Getting back to my list, number 2, Mason Jones, who we probably seen fight, who you probably did see fight last week at Cage Warriors to improve his record to 9-0 and get the big gold belt strapped around his waist. Fighting out of Wales, been a big fan of this kid for the last 2-3 years, coming through the Cage Warriors system. And now he's went all the way up to now he's a world champion in Cage Warriors. And usually when you get that belt, a calling from the UFC is not too far away. Also, I should mention, some of these fighters you might see maybe on Dana White's Contender series, especially the honourable mentions, you might see them over the next few years on that show. But this is fighters I think that we could possibly see in the UFC within the next 12 months. I hope they do, and they will sign some of them, I think. But Mason Jones, like I say, an all-action fighter. I think he does get hit a little bit too much for my liking. I did say in the prediction video last week, he gets hit a little bit too much. But the guy is super strong in many areas, and once he's got you hurt, he's like a shark. He gets in there and he takes you out in no time whatsoever. I fully expect by the end of this year that Mason Jones will be in the UFC. I think he will defend his Cage Warriors Championship in Wales in the summer, and then towards the latter end of the year, I think we see Mason Jones make his way over to the UFC and be a really good addition to that division over there. In the 155 division, it's a bit of a shark tank, so it's not the easiest place to accumulate wins. I definitely think he can get wins, and I think he can actually be one of these fighters that can maybe get better inside the UFC octagon. So Mason Jones is next up for there. Number 3 who I've got in my list is Brendan Royval, who's a guy I've actually seen. I think he's got a fight in the Dana White Contender series, so we might see him sooner rather than later. 10-4 record, fighting out of Factory X there, coming from a really good camp out of Colorado, in the flyweight divisions. And the UFC are, right now, they're always looking for flyweights to really put into their division. This is the guy that I've seen in LFA. He's faced some UFC vets and beat them before, and Joby Sanchez. I lost to Casey Kenny. So if you're on that LFA radar, you're kind of in the UFC's viewpoint. It's the same with Cage Warriors. If you do well through that, you usually get the opportunity to move over at the UFC at some point, depending how, if depending on how you look. And he's fought guys with a lot of winning records. He's fighting Jerome Rivera at the Contender Series later on this year, but yeah, he beat Nate Williams last time out, who's got a lot of fights, a lot of experience under his belt there. Beat him by a first round armbar. Beat Joby Sanchez with an armbar. Like I say, lost that fight to Casey Kenny. Brendan Royval, I think, will be a welcome addition to the flyweight division. I see him winning fights in the UFC. He's got great cardio, and he can go for days. I expect the UFC to sign that guy, depending if he wins on the Dana White Contender Series. I can see him coming through there. One that cropped up to me is Timur Valiev, 16-2 record, fighting out of Jackson Wink out in New Mexico. A guy who I think's got all the skills to probably be, or get his opportunity, or get a chance to jump into the UFC right now. Like a 16-2 record, that's pretty substantial. Fighting out of Russia. And like I say, he's not fought since the end of last year, so, and he's got nothing coming up. There's no fights really being made right now. But you see him in GFC, which is a promotion in Russia, which is coming through. A lot of the Dagestani fighters are coming through. Like Khabib, I think, has got a bit of input into who fights on those cards, like Umar Nurmagomedov, who fights at UFC 249, and Usman Nurmagomedov, the brother of Umar. So we've seen him in the PFL, if you've watched him there. Just a really hard-nosed Russian that is hard to kind of fight, and he's beat a lot of guys with good records. Ronaldo Silva, Chris Gutierrez, who's in the UFC, actually lost a very, very close split decision, which he really probably shouldn't have lost in that one. That's a guy I think we might see get his opportunity, just come into the UFC. I don't think you put him in the Dana White Contender Series. I think you just sign him and put him into the UFC. So number 4 on my list was Timur Valiev. Next on my list here, this one I'm maybe taking a little bit of a flyer on, but like I said before with Royval, the UFC need flyweights. I think they really need to start building the division back up with new, fresh blood, new names. And at number 5 on my list, at 5-0, we have Jake Hadley, who I've been a very, very big admirer over the last kind of year and a bit. Watching him come through, going to Africa, beating Nazi Kimulo Zulu, who's a name over there in EFC, going over there, winning the title, and then beating Blaine O'Driscoll in Bellator at Bellator 227 towards kind of later end part of last year. And he is scheduled to fight Shaj Hack, who's a guy that if you're over here in the UK, you might know his name at Cage Warriors 114, depending if that's supposed to take place in the 18th. We'll see about that. But I think he's ready actually to move over to the UFC now. I think you could build him now. But obviously, 5-0, you could give him a couple more fights. If he stays with the Cage Warriors brand, I know Cage Warriors will build this guy up really, really well. But I think if he was to maybe fight a couple of times in 2020, sorry, that maybe early 2021, this guy could be in the UFC. I really like his skill set. Very dangerous in all aspects. And like I say, we need guys in the flyweight division to build off. So Jake Hadley is on my list there for the UFC to sign. Number 6, this guy here, in fact, one of these next 2 guys I'm going to talk about are probably the 2 guys I'm most high on in this 10 fighters that I've picked here. And this guy, this guy's got such a bright future. Number 6 for me, coming in with a record of 14-0-1, the KSW featherweight champion, and Salahdine Parnasse, who to me is just one of the best talents we have, completely out there outside the UFC and the whole of MMA. Just a really calm, very well versed, technical fighter, who's really putting a good record together over there in KSW, beating really good names over there as well, which I like. So he's not getting easy fights. He beat Ivan Bushinger, a known veteran of the European scene, 36-7 record. Roman Szymanski, 11-4. Marcin Rosiak, the Polish zombie, 13-4. He's beaten Artur Savinsky, 18-9. He's beaten guys with good records. He's not really a big finisher, but like I say, the names that he's fought are really, really tough names at this point in his career. And this guy to me is made to jump into the UFC right now. I think he will, because they're talking about going to France, and I've got very high hopes for this guy. I was thinking, right, what's the projection for this guy in the UFC? Top 10, I can see that easily. Top 5 in that division. Did I say featherweight? I don't think he's featherweight. Yeah, he is featherweight. I thought he was bantamweight for some reason. Like I say, 145, the top kind of 5 guys in there, you've got Zabit, Ortegas, whatever, they're all kind of around there. Really tough guys to kind of face with different skill sets. This guy's really, really good in all aspects. His takedowns, his technical striking, not like super powerful, but really kind of works well with his movement. He really meshes it all together very, very well. And like I say, I think if I was to give him a projection, I think within inside a couple of years, he could be a top 5 featherweight in the UFC, in my opinion, with aspirations to maybe go and get that belt one day. I've got really high hopes for him when he makes a move over. I think that's going to be coming fairly soon. So Salahdine Parnasse is on my list there. This guy is an absolute destroyer, coming in number 7 on my picks here. Tofiq Musayev, 18-3, the Rizin lightweight champion, who's really kind of came to prominence in the last, I want to say, a couple of years, even though he's been accumulating wins for the last 5 years or so. But he's been taking out names recently that we've seen over there, and obviously he's got a belt there. And I believe the UFC have kind of been interested in this guy a little bit, and they've maybe offered him a contract, but I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure on that. This is just hearsay what I've heard on that. But like I say, his last 4 fights: Darren Cruikshank, Damian Brown, former UFC vets, another UFC vet, and Johnny Case, where he punched those guys out in the first round, and then went to a hard decision, a pretty dominant decision actually, over Patricky Pitbull towards the end of last year. This guy's made to come into the UFC. He's gonna garner a lot of hype when he comes in there. I think he's a guy you could easily put in a lot of fun fights in that division. I've got high expectations for him. He is 30 years old, so they need to start really pulling the trigger on this guy sooner rather than later. But Tofiq Musayev is a guy that I want in the UFC. I think he will be here in the next year. Next on my list, at coming in at number 8, we've got Miranda Maverick, who comes in with a 7-2 record. Now, if you watch some fights, you'll see that she's fought in Invicta many times. And the UFC are always needing women fighters to come into their division, and now might be the time to bring this girl in, especially with a card in Norfolk, Virginia that they're talking about, and that is her home base, is in Norfolk, Virginia. Like I say, 7-2 record, had a couple of losses, learned from those. Deanna Bennett, Brogan Walker Sanchez, and she's accumulated wins over Shayna Young. Got that win back against Deanna Bennett, and then beat a former UFC veteran, Impel Gonzalez, where she won by decision. Like I say, they're always looking for girls to come into the divisions, the flyweight division, whatever it may be. I think Miranda Maverick would be a really good case to come into the UFC, and I think she would get some wins. But could you see her being kept in Invicta and build her up a little bit more? Absolutely. But I think the UFC should sign her in the next year and get her in there for that. Number 9 in my list, coming in here with a 16-2 record, fighting out of Slovakia, I believe, Ludovit Klein. I was really intrigued watching this guy fight. He's recently coming off a big knockout win over former UFC veteran Lucas Zajewski. Literally, I want to say about maybe 2 months, maybe not even 2 months, 6 weeks ago, he probably did that. Where he kind of came through some adversity. Zajewski had nothing on the feet for him, so decided to really run after him, try and get takedowns, get the single leg. Got him down a couple of times, but like what I liked about Klein was he jumped back to his feet so quickly, and just kept on working and was never giving up. Eventually, though, he did get taken down pretty powerfully by Zajewski. He had nothing there. He was just really keeping him there and not even advancing or anything, and just really holding him there. Once Klein got back to his feet, oh my goodness, he put him against the cage. He unloaded some massive combinations, then caught him. He threw a head kick. It kind of got blocked. Then he kind of came back, threw the head kick again. That was the end of the fight. So Drewski got knocked out. Even the fight before that, against João Rodrigues, that was a good fight. And you should see the finish in that one. Absolutely brutal head kick knockout. This guy is really good in a lot of areas. His striking is very clean, very precise, great movement. Like I say, I think he needs to work on his kind of takedown defense a little bit, because that's what guys will try and do. They'll try and grapple with him. But he is a really good fighter. And I think with a record like 16-2, fighting out of that Octagon promotion where they are really building something there, I think we could see him in the UFC in the next 12 months. So Ludovit Klein is my number 9. And number 10 in my last one in the top 10, who I think will get in the next year, fighting out of England, Manchester. He defended his Cage Warriors belt a few weeks back. We've got Jack Cartwright at 8-0, who's already calling the UFC to put him on that Dublin card in August. This one here, I'm not too sure about. The UFC could keep him around. Cage Warriors could keep him around and really build off another couple of wins and see where he's at and maybe get some title defences in there. But he's looked phenomenal in what we've seen in Cage Warriors. He obviously won the tournament, the one-night tournament, to crown the Bantamweight Championship, beating Scott Malone and Marko Kovacevic, both with first-round knockouts. And then Manuel Bilic, he kind of dominated. And he did start to fade later on, but that was his first 5-round fight. So you can't really take too much away from that there. Like I say, he's calling it again to the UFC. Coming in at 135, that's a big division. He's very versed in all areas. I think he's a wrestler by trade with really dangerous striking. I like this guy to kind of get the call to the UFC, but I wouldn't put it past Smithies. Maybe this is going to be one early 2021 that the UFC sign this guy. So at number 10, Jack Cartwright is he's my number 10 in my top 10 fighters the UFC should sign in the next 12 months. Now, I've got a list here that I think you guys should really keep an eye on these fighters, because I've watched some other fights. I'm going to go back and watch some more other fights. So I'm going to start off. I'm not going to really talk about them too much. I'm just going to give you the name, the record, and kind of keep an eye on this. I'm going to put this in the drop down box, and we'll see if we maybe get these. It wouldn't surprise me if some of these guys get called into the Dana White Contender Series this year. So first on the list, Usman Nurmagomedov, the younger brother of Umar Nurmagomedov, 9-0. There's kind of talk that this guy is better than Umar, and if he's better than Umar, I've been really impressed with watching him yesterday and today. Umar Nurmagomedov fights at UFC 249 against Hunter Azure. This kid looks the real deal. He looks really, really good. They're really putting him. He's having a lot of fights, kind of every 2 months. They're really building him, so we could see him in the UFC within the next 24 months easily. Nicholas Mota, 11-3, dangerous striker, coming out of Brazil. Have to really keep an eye on him. Kyle Kruchmer, 5-0. Cole Farrell, 8-0. Christian Edwards, 2-0. He's like I think they're saying he's the John Jones kind of prodigy. He's in Bellator, but I don't think he'll be put down to a kind of multi-fight contract. So we maybe see him in a Dana White Contender Series fight within the next year. Who knows? Just going off my list here. Erin Blanchfield, 5-1. Paul Capaldo, 4-0. A guy fighting out with Vegas, and Sherrod Blackledge, 4-0. That's someone that I know Joanne Calderwood kind of talks highly about. I've seen some interviews with that. So yeah, John Gotti III, who's 5-0. Casey O'Neill, who is actually a Scottish lass who is fighting out in Australia. I think she's the eternal MMA champion over there. Looks really, really good, so she could get signed within the next couple of years very easily. Tafon Nchukwi, I think is how you pronounce him. 3-0. Absolute banger from Cameroon, out the Lloyd Irvin fight team there. The same as like Sadiq Youssef. Really dangerous hitter. Like, all his wins are via knockout, even his amateur fights, and they're nasty, nasty knockouts. Matt Dixon, 9-0. Oben Elliott, 3-0. Brant Moore, 7-1. Ian Gary, 3-0. Paul Hughes, who I think is going to be great. Paul Hughes is 4-0. Like I said, those guys are in Cage Warriors, and you know they will get built properly, and they'll get the right matchups at the right time. So these are guys for the future you need to look out for. Paul Hughes is a guy I really like. I think he's a really solid fighter. I think he fights out the north of Ireland, Northern Ireland there, so really good fighter. Cezary Szezek fights out of Poland, 12-0. Adam Proctor, 12-1. Adam's a guy that I really like, but he's got no kind of killer instinct, no kind of second gear, and I think he needs to start showing that to really get some eyes on him. Matthias Lejerski, 6-0. Matthias Gamrot is a long time kind of European stalwart, but undefeated, really kind of big name in the European circuit with KSW. Mitch Raposo, 3-0. Kazan Magomed Sharipov, you might recognise that surname, that's Zabit's little brother, he's 2-0, keep an eye on him. James Hendon, who fought at Cage Warriors at the weekend there, 5-0, keep an eye on him. He had a dominant performance against Chris Edwards, who's got a lot of experience last week. Ahmed Magomedov, 7-0. Melissa Martinez, 7-0. Mateusz Rebecki, 11-1. They're some of the guys that I've got my eye on that will be in the UFC within the next few years, I think, or in the Dana White Contender Series. Some big names I think will come out of that list that I just said there. So yeah, that's my pick. My top 10 picks who I think the UFC will sign, and some honourable mentions of people that they might sign within the next few years. So I should probably add Jamal Whitehead to that. Jared Gooden's another guy that you might see in the UFC very soon. I should have really added those guys to the list. But guys, that's me done for this one here for my top 10 fighters the UFC should sign in the next 12 months. I'll be back later on for early insight for UFC 249, Khabib Nurmagomedov against Tony Ferguson. Like I say, hit that subscribe button, give it a thumbs up if you can. I appreciate the support, and until next time, all the very best.